You've heard the name, right? Area 51. I mean, just saying it brings up all these images. Strange lights in the desert, government conspiracies, and a secret so massive that for decades we were told the place just didn't exist. So what was really going on out there?
That's the big question, isn't it? What's the real story? What was happening behind those fences that the government tried so hard to hide? Well, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to separate fact from fiction and really get to the bottom of the story that sparked this global phenomenon.
Okay, so to really get to the heart of Area 51, you've got to start with one thing: the secrecy. I mean, this wasn't just some restricted area. Nope. It was designed from the get-go to be a complete black hole for information. We're talking one of the most classified places on Earth. Yeah, they basically designed it to be an impenetrable fortress. Think about it. On the ground, you've got armed guards, motion sensors, the works. And in the sky, the airspace above it is a total no-fly zone. It's so restricted that even military pilots know to stay far, far away. Nothing gets in or out unless you've got the golden ticket. And maybe the wildest part of all this, for most of its history, the official government line was simple. The base doesn't exist. It's a phantom. And that absolute, total denial, well, that's what lit the fuse. That's what turned a secret military base into a worldwide obsession. All right, so where did this whole thing even begin? For that, we got to rewind the clock, go all the way back to the 1950s, right in the thick of the Cold War. You've got the US and the Soviet Union in this massive game of spy versus spy, and America desperately needed a secret spot to build its next game-changing piece of tech. And they found the absolute perfect hiding spot, out in the vast, empty Nevada desert. So why there? Well, for one, it was completely isolated. I mean, hundreds of miles from anything. And the real kicker? It had this massive dry lake bed called Groom Lake, which was basically a perfect natural runway for all the crazy experimental planes they were planning to build. And so that was it. In 1955, the site was officially established. A top-secret base was born, right in the middle of nowhere, ready to kick off its very secret mission.
So what about the name Area 51? You'd think it would be some cool, sinister code name, right? Nope. It was just a super boring map grid designation from the Atomic Energy Commission. Isn't that wild? The origin of one of the world's greatest mysteries was just paperwork.
Okay, so the base is up and running. What was its first big secret mission? Well, the goal was to build a totally revolutionary new spy plane. We're talking about something that could fly higher and faster than anything the world had ever seen, and fly it right over the Soviet Union. And this is where the story really takes a wild turn. To get what happens next, you have to understand this. Back in the 50s, a normal commercial airliner flew at maybe, 10,000 feet. But the very first plane tested at Area 51, the U-2 spy plane, it flew at over 70,000 feet. That's not a typo, 70,000. It was like a silver speck at the edge of space, flying higher than anyone even thought was possible. So just imagine you're an airline pilot back in 1955. You look out your cockpit window and you see a light moving impossibly high above you, where no plane has any business being. What are you going to think? These weren't aliens. These were the very first UFO sightings, and what people were actually seeing was the U-2. And listen, the U-2 was just the start. Area 51 became the birthplace of absolute legends. You had the SR-71 Blackbird, a spy plane so fast it could literally outrun a missile. You had the first stealth fighters, early drone prototypes. Basically, the most advanced aerospace tech on the planet was all being tested in secret, right there, over the Nevada desert. So you have these two key ingredients, right? First, you've got these strange lights in the sky that nobody can explain. And second, you've got a government that refuses to say a single word about it. Well, you put those two together and you've created the perfect storm for the myth of Area 51 to just take off. And you really got to think about what people were seeing. The bizarre shapes of these experimental planes, the weird glow of their engines way up at these insane altitudes. It all led to these reports of flying saucers and otherworldly ships making impossible turns. But here's the real key to the whole thing. The sightings themselves? They weren't even the most important part. The real fuel for this fire was the government's total silence. Their absolute refusal to explain what people were seeing created this huge information vacuum, and you know what happens next. Into that vacuum rushed every wild theory you can imagine.
And look, this wasn't some short-term plan. The government built this deliberate wall of silence and kept it up for decades, refusing to even admit the base was real. For almost 60 years, the official answer was always the same. No comment. The base doesn't exist. Just let that sink in. 60 years. That level of sustained official denial is almost unheard of. And of course, every single no comment just made the place seem that much more mysterious. So this is what the public saw. Documents with huge chunks blacked out, redacted information everywhere. And when you create an information vacuum like that, what do you think happens? People fill in the blanks themselves, and they fill them with theories of crashed spaceships, alien autopsies, and captured tech from another world. So, what happens when that wall of silence finally starts to crumble? Let's jump ahead and take a look at what we've learned now that some of these secrets are out. The big moment came in 2013. That's when the wall finally cracked. Thanks to a Freedom of Information Act request, the CIA did something nobody thought they'd do. They officially, on the record, acknowledged that Area 51 was real. So, what did these declassified files actually confirm? Well, pretty much exactly what the historical record pointed to all along: a history of testing spy planes like the U-2 and SR-71, developing drone prototypes, and working on advanced radar. And what was missing? You guessed it. Not a single mention of aliens, UFOs, or any kind of extraterrestrial tech. But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. Just because they finally admitted the place exists doesn't mean all the secrets are out. Not by a long shot. The base is still very, very active, and whatever they're working on now is still top secret. In fact, satellite images show it's still growing. Something is definitely still happening out there. Which kind of brings us full circle, doesn't it? So, what is Area 51? The official story, the declassified story, points to one thing: a top secret test site for America's most advanced military aircraft. But with so much of its work still locked away, the government's own secrecy makes sure that door to speculation is never, ever completely closed. Really, the story of Area 51 is the perfect example of how intense secrecy can create a legend that becomes way more powerful than the actual truth. And it leaves us with this one last thought. Even when we finally get some of the facts, the desert still holds on to its secrets. So the question is, where does the truth we know